If there were ever any doubt in your mind as to the amount of damage that social justice does, just watch as I go through this New York Post article from July last year. Elite K-8 school teaches white students they're born racist. Yes, seriously, this actually happened, and honestly, I think the New York Post were being generous with that headline. I think they were using the word teachers in its loosest possible sense there. I mean, look how the Mail Online reported it. Even babies can be racist. Elite New York school tells white children they should be ashamed of their privilege and segregates pupils by race. Yes, because that's exactly what happened in a school where kids go to learn. Instead they got this. But, let's go back to the New York Post article because I think the body of the article was best with that one. An elite Manhattan school is teaching white students as young as 6 that they're born racist and should feel guilty benefiting from white privilege, while heaping praise and cupcakes on their black peers. Just let that sink in for a minute. This teacher took a load of kids, some of whom were as young as 6, and consistently drilled into them just how racist she thought they all were. And why did she think they were all racist? Well, because they were white, of course. Administrators at the Bank Street School for Children on the Upper West Side claim it's a novel approach to fighting discrimination. Oh, is that what they called it? And that several other private New York schools are doing it. Oh well, that's all right then, I suppose. No, that makes it worse, not better. But even liberal parents aren't buying it. That'll be liberal in the American sense, I take it. They complain the K-8 school of 430 kids is separating whites in classes where they're made to feel awful about their whiteness. Here's a question for you folks. Can you think of anything more psychologically damaging to a child than making them feel terrible every day about something over which they have no control? And all the kids of color in other rooms where they're taught to feel proud about their race and are rewarded with treats and other privileges. So they were making the non-white kids feel proud of their race, whilst making the white kids feel ashamed of theirs. Can you see where this is going yet? Ever since Ferguson, the school has been increasing anti-white propaganda in its curriculum, said a parent who requested anonymity because he has children currently enrolled in the school. Bingo. You know, if I was that parent, I'd have pulled my kids out of that school as soon as I found out about this. Bank Street has created a dedicated space in the school for kids of color, where they're embraced by minority instructors and encouraged to voice their feelings and share experiences about being a kid of color, according to school presentation slides obtained by the Post. Sounds less like a lesson in a school and more like a group therapy session. Ironic really, considering that it's the white kids who are probably going to need the therapy after the constant barrage of attempts to make them hate themselves. Meanwhile, white kids are herded into separate classrooms and taught to raise their awareness of the prevalence of whiteness and privilege. See what I mean? Challenge notions of colorblindness. Why, colorblindness, in the sense of disregarding race wherever possible, is a good thing, not a bad thing. And assumptions of normal, good, and American, and understand and own European ancestry and see the tie to privilege. In other words, be made to feel guilty for the actions of people who lived and died hundreds of years ago just because they happen to share the same skin color. Throwing kids to the wolves to push an agenda. That's social justice for you folks. This crap has already completely taken over colleges and universities in the West, and now, it's trickling down to schools. The same slides point out that a number of leading private schools across the country also have segregated students by race-based affinity groups. It lists several in New York, including Riverdale Country School, Brooklyn Friends School, the Cathedral School, the Calhoun School, Ethical Culture Fieldstone School, and Little Red Schoolhouse and Elizabeth Irwin High School. That was 6, in case you weren't counting. 6 other schools in New York alone in addition to this one that, at least at the time that this article was written, were all segregating their pupils by race. In 2016, not 1956, 2016. Under Bank Street's Racial Justice and Advocacy curriculum, parents say, teachers push white kids to grapple with America's history of racism, as though it was their fault. Then they indoctrinate them into thinking systemic racism still exists. Which of course it doesn't, at least not in any Western country anyway. I don't know about the others. In any case, it's pure paranoid delusion, something that's not uncommon amongst the advocates of social justice. And that they're part of the problem and must hold themselves accountable even for acts of racism committed by others. Let me just read that last bit again. They told them that they're part of the problem and must hold themselves accountable, even for acts of racism committed by others. Are you seeing the problem with social justice yet, folks? 100% of the curriculum is what whites have done to other races, said another Bank Street parent. They offer nothing that would balance the story. Well, that's no surprise, is it, given what we've heard so far? Added the parent, who also asked to go unnamed. Any questions they can't answer they rationalize under the pretense of institutional racism, which is never really defined. Well, I can define it. Institutional racism is racism that is perpetrated, not by an individual or a group of individuals, but by an institution. Like, oh I don't know, Bank Street School. The program, these parents say, deliberately instills in white children a strong sense of guilt about their race. Some kids come home in tears, saying, I'm a bad person. Did you catch that, folks? Some kids come home in tears, saying, I'm a bad person. There's your proverbial smoking gun right there. There's your key piece of evidence that social justice does real-world harm. These supposed lessons had these kids going home crying, thinking that they were the evil ones because they had the wrong skin color. They say white kids are being brainwashed into thinking any success they achieve is unearned. Yes, brainwashed is exactly the right word for it as well. That or indoctrinated. Indeed, a young white girl is seen confessing on a Bank Street video, I feel guilty for having a privilege I don't deserve. How did they ever think that this was a good idea? How did they ever think that making children feel like shit over things that had nothing to do with them was a positive thing? Are they so indoctrinated themselves that that's what they seriously thought? I guess they must be. Parents, moreover, say the classroom segregation only breeds resentment. Younger children, for instance, feel left out when the kids of color come back to the main classroom munching on cupcakes they were given in their affinity group. Oh well, that can't end badly, can it? The divisive program is run by Anshu Wahi, a long-time social justice activist who has held the title of Director of Diversity at Bank Street since 2013. And there you go, folks, a social justice activist. So if up to now you'd been thinking that this was all terrible, but what did it have to do with social justice? There's your answer. She referred questions to the school's communications office, which did not respond to requests for comment. Of course they didn't, because what could they say? How could you defend the psychological abuse of children? You couldn't. Still, Wahi's radical beliefs come into clear view from recorded conversations with parents, as well as handouts and emails to parents. She believes the answer to racism is teaching white kids to see race in everything, a process called white racial socialization. Obviously, seeing race in everything is not the answer to racism. For a start, not everything has a racial element in it to be seen, and worse, far from ending racism, it will actually make it worse because it will produce people who are obsessed with race. Forget teaching them to be colorblind. Yes, because we couldn't have them not being racist, could we? That would be racist of them. Honestly, the logic with this idea that racial colorblindness is somehow racist is staggering. That's a cop-out, she suggests, an excuse to ignore the hardships of people of color. More paranoid delusion. It's also a tool of whiteness to perpetuate the oppression of people of color, according to one paper she recommends parents read. Remember, we're still talking about colorblindness here. You know, treating of everyone the same regardless of race. That's somehow a tool of whiteness to perpetuate the oppression of people of color, according to this paper that she was trying to persuade parents to read. Wahi believes even white babies display signs of racism. Babies? Seriously, she actually believes this. So she encourages parents to talk to their kids about race as early as kindergarten, making them hyper-aware of racial differences, and even examine your own whiteness. Look, I can understand wanting to make young kids aware of the existence of other races besides their own, although one would have thought that they would be anyway in a big city like New York, but making them hyper-aware of racial differences, and examining their own whiteness, can only do harm, not good. She defends segregating minority children by race by arguing they need a safe place where they can share their ouch moments, including subtle but offensive white comments known as microaggressions. White comments. Did you notice that little bit of sleight of hand there? She was concerned about offensive comments. But only the ones from the white children mind. The kids of other races could say what they liked. Also, notice the use of the term microaggressions. I told you this had trickled down from colleges and universities, didn't I? Microaggressions are a hot topic on American campuses right now and have been for some time. And you know what else you could say that about? Safe spaces. Bank Street wants to give kids of color a space to talk about shared experiences, he explained in a parent handout, because even in society today, people of color are treated unfairly. Are they? By whom exactly? In the recent past, she added, children of color in our lower school have been told by well-intentioned peers that their skin looks like the color of poop. Well, there you go then. Well-intentioned peers, not hostile peers, not troublemaking peers, not racist peers, but well-intentioned peers. He says the school is merely empowering children of color who feel alienated and devalued. They're not a currency in a dominant white culture, but some parents fear the school is nurturing resentment among minority pupils and reinforcing perceptions of victimization. Of course, because they were being taught to be afraid of white people, and just to make sure they made the white kids all jealous of them by giving them treats like buns and stuff to eat while the white kids got none. Her extreme diversity program is based on the premise that America is still plagued by systemic racism. We've been over this, it isn't. Which she claims she saw firsthand while serving as a juror hearing criminal cases in Brooklyn. She told parents she was shocked to learn that every case involved a minority defendant. In the same May 2015 meeting with parents, she cited the GI Bill as proof of white privilege. Yes, the concept of white privilege is something else that these social justice people claim exists, but that actually doesn't. It's all in their heads, like some sort of collective delusion. Claiming the popular post-World War II legislation only benefited white soldiers and their heirs, when in fact, black enrollment in colleges exploded under the GI Bill. Well, that's a bit inconvenient for the narrative then, isn't it? Most recently, parents were upset with her airing a documentary film lionizing leaders of the violent Black Panthers movement. On May 31st, the Bank Street School screened Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution, which depicts Panther's founder and convicted cop killer Huey Newton as a martyr. That figures. A lot of SJWs are anti-police. Until they need them, of course. In 2013, moreover, parents expressed outrage over an email from Wahi that seemed to sympathize with Muslim terrorists after the Boston Marathon bombings. And she was still working there, 3 years later. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, folks, but as well as being anti-police, a lot of SJWs are also Islamic terrorism apologists. The April 17, 2013 message, from Anshu, our Director of Diversity and Community, the Boston Marathon, another perspective, advised students and parents to be mindful of stereotypes and dangerous ideas regarding Arabs and Muslims. It linked to an article titled, "Let's Hope the Boston Marathon Bomber is a White American." Translation: Please don't be a Muslim, 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 please don't be a Muslim. They were. Now, at this point, you may be wondering what became of this. Is it still going on? Was the teacher running it disciplined or fired? And the answers are, I don't know, and sort of. As to whether or not it's still going on, the follow-up article, which was written 2 weeks after the original, doesn't say, although one would have to assume that they dropped the program after all the backlash it got from parents. And as far as the teacher who was running it is concerned, elite schools, exceptionally racist, diversity head will not return. The diversity director of an elite Manhattan prep school who teaches white students as young as 6 that they're born racist and benefit from white privilege, will not be returning in the fall, the Bank Street School for Children confirmed. A school spokeswoman insisted the exit of Ivy League-educated Anshu Wahi was not precipitated by last month's post-expose on the Upper West Side School's radical diversity program, explaining that Wahi stepped down for personal reasons unrelated to complaints about the program. Yeah, sure, pull the other one, it's got bells on it. Parents who complained to the Post aren't buying it. No, and neither am I. They revolted after the exceptionally racist diversity coordinator introduced increasingly anti-white propaganda into the private school's curriculum. We joined the school because of the diversity and now hate it because of the extreme reverse racism, said one mother. That's very telling, isn't it? She sent her kid or kids to this school, not because of the quality of the education that they could get there, not because of any former pupils recommending it, not because of anything like that, but because of the diversity. Now it's come back to bite her in the ass. That's what happens when you put identity politics over quality. Some kids come home in tears, saying, "I'm a bad person," according to parents. Last year in a meeting secretly recorded by parents, Wahi admitted, "We are definitely getting pushback from white parents, as well as some black parents. Well, that should have told her something, shouldn't it? But apparently it didn't. Regarding her racial justice and advocacy curriculum, but she argued it's a brave step that teachers, parents, and students must all take to be more progressive in their thinking about race. Progressive racial segregation is progressive, is it? Anyway, I'm going to skip the next couple of paragraphs because they just reiterate what was in the original article, which takes us to. One parent maintained that some 30 families threatened to pull their children out of the school. So a load of them did indeed at least threaten to take their kids out of there, even if they didn't actually do it. The Bank Street spokeswoman said the school is experiencing only typical attrition. Well, the article doesn't say how many of them actually did pull their children out of there, so it's hard to gauge that statement. No one has indicated the diversity curriculum as a reason for leaving, the spokeswoman said. Well, I would have, if it were me. Still, there are signs the administration has gone into damage control mode. After the Post story, school officials sent emails out asking parents to write testimonials as to the greatness of the school, one parent said. Now why would they have felt the need to do that, do you think? Anyway, that's the end of the follow-up article. By now, hopefully you folks have got the picture in terms of just how terrible and corrosive social justice is. There's nothing just about it. It's all about identity politics and pushing agendas. No matter what the cost.